My aunt asked me for $10,000 to put as a deposit to start renovating my grandmom's house. But what I found out shocked me, and then I'm Emily. For as long as I can remember, I've been the one everyone in my family turns to when things fall apart. Need someone to pick up the slack during a family emergency? Call Emily. Holiday dinner needs planning because no one else can manage it? Emily's got it. Need help babysitting or cleaning up someone else's mess? You guessed it, Emily. I never really complained. I mean, family is family, right? That's what I always told myself. I grew up hearing it from my Aunt Diane, my mom's older sister. Emily, you're such a good girl, she'd say. You're holding this family together. Your cousins could really learn a thing or two from you. She meant Sophia and Jake, her two kids. They're around my age. Sophia is 29, and Jake just turned 26. I'm 28, so we grew up close, at least physically. Emotionally, that's a different story. Sophia was always the golden girl, the center of attention, and not in a good way. She didn't lift a finger unless it directly benefited her. Jake, on the other hand, was the quiet, avoidant type who just coasted by, letting everyone else do the work. So, naturally, I became the responsible one. My mom passed away when I was 18, and my dad, well, let's just say he wasn't equipped to handle being a single parent. My younger brother Michael moved out for college, leaving me to fill the adult role in the family. Aunt Diane stepped in to help where she could, but she had her hands full with Sophia's constant drama and Jake's general indifference. Looking back, I think Diane saw me as a surrogate daughter, one who didn't give her as much grief as her own kids. At first, her praise felt like validation. I was needed. I was appreciated. But as the years went on, it started to feel more like an expectation. A few months ago, I got a call from Aunt Diane. Emily, I need your help, she said, her voice tinged with urgency. My first thought was, what now? But of course, I didn't say that. Instead, I asked what was going on. It's about Grandma's house, she began. You know, with her being gone now, we need to figure out what to do with it. I thought, well, you've always been so good with this sort of thing. I was hoping you could take the lead. I froze. Grandma's house was a big deal in our family. It was where we celebrated holidays, had sleepovers as kids, and gathered during every crisis. It wasn't just a house. It was the heart of the family. But it was also old, in desperate need of repairs, and sitting in a prime real estate area. The logical part of me knew we couldn't keep it forever. Still, the idea of being the one to decide its fate felt overwhelming. What about Sophia and Jake? I asked cautiously. Oh, you know how they are, Diane said, laughing nervously. Sophia's too busy with her career, and Jake, well, he's Jake. But you're so responsible, Emily. You've always had the family's best interests at heart. I wanted to say no. I really did. But then I thought about how much Grandma's house meant to me, how much it had meant to all of us growing up. If I didn't step up, who would? So, like the reliable person I was raised to be, I agreed. Taking the lead on Grandma's house turned into a full-time job. I coordinated appraisals, consulted contractors about repairs, and spent hours researching how to split the proceeds fairly among the family. Diane promised she'd help, but her idea of helping was forwarding me emails or calling me to check in. Sophia and Jake were worse. Sophia acted like I was her personal assistant, constantly asking for updates but never offering to do anything herself. I trust you to handle it, she said with a sweet smile that made me want to scream. Jake didn't even pretend to care. He'd shrug and mumble, whatever works for you, as if none of this affected him. The tipping point came when Sophia suggested selling the house to one of her friends, a real estate agent who, coincidentally, was offering a price way below market value. It would save us so much hassle, she argued, and he's a family friend, so we can trust him. I told her no. Flat out no. For once, I put my foot down. I wasn't going to let her sell Grandma's legacy for pennies just because it was convenient for her. She didn't take it well. Why are you making this so difficult? She snapped. I thought you were supposed to be the responsible one. Isn't that what you're always bragging about? That stung. I wasn't bragging. I was trying to do the right thing for everyone, even if no one else seemed to care. Aunt Diane intervened. But instead of backing me up, she gave me a lukewarm, let's not fight, girls. We're all family here. It was clear that Sophia and Jake didn't appreciate what I was doing, and Aunt Diane wasn't going to hold them accountable. Still, I pressed on, hoping that if I just finished this one last thing, I could finally take a step back and focus on my own life. The tension came to a head during one of our family meetings about the house. I had spent hours preparing spreadsheets, outlining all the options, and breaking down the financial implications. I thought having everything in black and white would help. Instead, it made things worse. Sophia dismissed my suggestions outright, calling them overcomplicated. Jake, who hadn't contributed a single idea, suddenly had opinions when Sophia prompted him. Yeah, why not just sell it quick? Emily's making this way harder than it needs to be. Aunt Diane didn't take my side. In fact, she barely said anything at all. She just nodded along as Sophia and Jake steamrolled my plans. It was like all the years of me stepping up, sacrificing my time and energy for this family, meant absolutely nothing. That night, I went home and cried. For the first time, I started to question if all my sacrifices were even worth it. Had I wasted years trying to hold together a family that didn't even care about me? After that disastrous family meeting, I tried to focus on finishing the work for Grandma's house. I told myself that once this was over, I could finally take a step back. I'd done my part. Maybe too much, but at least I could walk away knowing I'd done the right thing. But of course, nothing in this family is ever that simple. Aunt Diane called me the next day. Emily, sweetheart, she began, her tone overly sweet, which was always a red flag. I need to ask you for one more favor. I know you've already done so much, but I really need you on this. I braced myself. What is it? Well, she hesitated. You know how the house is in desperate need of repairs? I've been talking to a contractor. Sophia knows him, and he said he could start immediately if we put down a deposit. I already didn't like where this was going. Okay, and well, she continued, we're a little short on cash right now, but I thought, since you've always been so responsible with your money, maybe you could loan us the deposit? Just until we sell the house. You'd get it back, of course. I nearly dropped the phone. You want me to pay for the repairs? Not all of them, she said quickly. Just the deposit. It's only $10,000. Only $10,000. My stomach turned. That was my savings. Money I'd set aside for emergencies or, maybe something for myself for once. I felt my face heat up with anger, but I kept my voice calm. What about Sophia and Jake? Can't they pitch in? Oh, honey, you know how it is, Diane said, her voice dripping with condescension. Sophia's been so busy with work, and Jake, well, he's still trying to get on his feet. You're the most stable one in the family. I know you'd want to help. I didn't know what to say. If I refused, I'd look selfish. But if I agreed, I'd be risking my financial security for a family that had already shown they didn't appreciate me. Let me think about it, I finally said, which was code for I need to find a way to say no. I didn't even have 24 hours to think before Sophia called me. Mom said you're hesitating about the deposit, she began, her tone sharp. Emily, this is for the family. Don't you care about Grandma's house? I gritted my teeth. Of course I care. But it's a lot of money and You'll get it back, she interrupted. Why are you making such a big deal out of this? You're always talking about how you're the responsible one. Well, here's your chance to prove it. I couldn't believe the audacity. I don't need to prove anything, I shot back. And I'm not comfortable putting down that kind of money without everyone pitching in. Well, I can't afford to, she said matter-of-factly, and neither can Jake. So, it's on you. Unless you want the house to fall apart, I guess. Her words stung more than I wanted to admit. I knew I shouldn't care what she thought, but years of being the responsible one made it hard to let go of the guilt. It wasn't just Sophia either. Aunt Diane kept calling, leaving voicemails about how much the family needed me and how proud Grandma would be if I stepped up one last time. Even Jake chimed in, though his approach was more passive-aggressive. If you can't help, I guess we'll figure something else out, he said, which only added to the pressure. In the end, I did what I always did. I caved. I told Aunt Diane I'd loan the money for the deposit, but only if she put in writing that I'd be repaid from the proceeds of the house sale. She agreed without hesitation, which should have been a red flag. But I was too exhausted to argue anymore. "Thank you, Emily," she said, her voice dripping with relief. "You're saving this family. Saving this family." It wasn't the first time I'd heard those words, and I doubted it would be the last. The contractor started the repairs the following week, and I tried to stay optimistic. Maybe this would all be worth it in the end. Maybe I'd finally earn the respect I deserved. But deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being used. Things started going downhill fast. The contractor called me with updates, not Aunt Diane, which meant I was the one fielding questions about permits, timelines, and unexpected costs. Every time I tried to loop Diane in, she brushed me off. "Oh, you're so much better at this than I am," she'd say, leaving me to deal with it alone. Then Sophia started pushing for upgrades. "If we're already doing repairs, why not modernize the kitchen?" she suggested during one of our family calls. "It'll increase the value of the house." "I'm not paying for a new kitchen," I said firmly. "Oh, come on," she huffed. "We'll pay you back." "No," I repeated. "The repairs are already costing more than expected. We need to stick to the basics." Sophia didn't take kindly to being told no. "God, Emily, why are you always so difficult?" she snapped. "I'm just trying to make sure the house sells for a good price." Jake, as usual, stayed quiet, but I could tell he agreed with her. Aunt Diane, to my dismay, sided with them. "Emily, maybe Sophia has a point. A little extra investment now could go a long way." I wanted to scream. It was clear they had no intention of sticking to the budget or taking my concerns seriously. But I'd already put so much time and money into this project that walking away felt impossible. So, I swallowed my frustration and kept going. A few weeks later, I got a call from the contractor. "I need approval to move forward with some additional work," he said. "Sophia told me to add a second bathroom upstairs." "What?" I practically yelled into the phone. "That's not part of the plan." "Well, she said it was approved by the family," he replied, sounding confused. "And since she's your cousin—" "No," I cut him off. "It's not approved. Do not move forward with any changes unless I sign off on them." After hanging up, I called Aunt Diane, furious. "Why is Sophia telling the contractor to add a bathroom?" I demanded. "Oh, I'm sure it's just a misunderstanding," Diane said breezily. "She's only trying to help." "Help?" I repeated, incredulous. "She's trying to take over." "Emily," Diane said with a sigh, "you need to stop being so controlling. This is a family project." Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. After everything I'd done, taking on the responsibility, loaning my savings, dealing with every headache, she was accusing me of being controlling? That night, I realized something I should have seen years ago. In this family, my efforts were never going to be enough. No matter how much I gave, it would never be appreciated. Worse, they'd find a way to make me the villain for not giving even more. Aunt Diane's comment about me being controlling replayed in my head for days. I couldn't shake the bitterness. Controlling? After everything I'd done? I was the only one holding this whole project together. Without me, the house would still be a crumbling mess. The ingratitude wasn't just hurtful, it was infuriating. Things didn't get any better from there. Every family meeting turned into an argument. Sophia continued pushing for upgrades, Jake stayed indifferent, and Diane just sat there, letting Sophia steamroll everyone. Every time I tried to hold the line on the budget or suggest a reasonable course of action, I was met with eye rolls and condescension. "Emily, you're overthinking this," Sophia said during one call. "We just want the house to sell for a good price. Why are you always so negative?" "I'm not being negative," I snapped. "I'm being realistic. We don't have the money for all these changes, and I'm not taking on any more debt." "Well, maybe if you didn't insist on micromanaging everything, this wouldn't be such a nightmare," she shot back. Before I could respond, Aunt Diane chimed in. "Let's not fight, girls. We're all on the same team here." No, we weren't. It was clear that Sophia and Jake were on one team, and I was on the other. Diane wasn't even pretending to be neutral anymore. She might not have said it outright, but her silence spoke volumes. She was siding with her kids. That realization cut deeper than I expected. Diane had always been the one who encouraged me, praised me for being the responsible one. I thought she respected me, maybe even admired me. But now it was clear she only valued me when I was useful to her and her children. The moment I started standing up for myself, I became the problem. The final straw came at another family meeting a few weeks later. By this point, the repairs were nearly done, and we needed to finalize a selling price for the house. I'd spent hours researching comparable properties in the area, consulting with the contractor, and crunching the numbers. I came prepared with a detailed breakdown of what I thought was a fair asking price. Before I could even finish my presentation, Sophia interrupted. "I think we should price it lower," she said. "It'll sell faster that way." "We don't need to price it lower," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "The market is strong right now, and we've put a lot of work into the house. We can afford to aim higher." "Yeah, but what if it doesn't sell?" she countered. "Then we're stuck waiting, and we'll lose money in the long run." I think my friend was right about listing it lower from the start. Her friend. The same one who tried to lowball us months ago. I should have known she'd bring him back into the conversation. "Sophia, we're not selling to your friend," I said firmly. "His offer was way below market value." "Well, maybe if you weren't so stubborn, we wouldn't be in this mess," she snapped. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "This mess? I'm the one who's been handling everything while you sit back and criticize me. You haven't done a single thing to help." Sophia scoffed. "Oh, please. No one asked you to take over, Emily. If you're so miserable, maybe you should have just let someone else handle it." "Like who?" I shot back. "You? Jake? Neither of you even care about this house." Jake, who had been unusually quiet, finally spoke up. "I mean, she's not wrong," he said with a shrug. "You do kind of act like you're in charge of everything." My jaw dropped. "Are you kidding me? The only reason I'm in charge is because no one else stepped up. You're all happy to let me do the work, but the second I make a decision you don't like, I'm the bad guy?" "Emily, that's enough," Aunt Diane said, her voice sharp. "We're trying to have a civil discussion." "A civil discussion?" I repeated, incredulous. "I'm the only one here who's actually done anything for this house. I loaned my savings for the repairs. I've spent months handling every detail. And now you're telling me I don't have a say in how we sell it." "Emily, no one's trying to undermine you," Diane said, though her tone suggested otherwise. "But this is a family decision. You need to be more flexible." I stared at her, stunned. All those years of being praised for my sacrifices, for being the one to hold the family together. And this was how they treated me? Like I was an obstacle to be worked around? For the first time in my life, I felt the urge to walk away, to leave them to figure it out on their own. But I couldn't bring myself to do it. Not yet. I still cared too much, even if they didn't. That night, I called my best friend Chloe. She listened patiently as I poured out my frustrations, venting about how ungrateful my family was and how betrayed I felt by Diane. "Emily, you need to stop letting them treat you like this," she said when I finally paused to catch my breath. "They're taking advantage of you, plain and simple." "I know," I admitted. "But what am I supposed to do? If I walk away, the house might not sell. And I need that money back." Chloe sighed. "You've already done more than your fair share. It's not your responsibility to fix everything. Sometimes, you have to let people deal with the consequences of their own actions." Her words stayed with me long after we hung up. Maybe she was right. Maybe it was time to let go. But a part of me wasn't ready to give up. Not yet. The next family meeting was set for the following week. I decided it would be my last. If they didn't start taking me seriously, I was done. For real this time. When the day came, I walked into Diane's house with my head held high. I was determined to stand my ground, no matter what. But nothing could have prepared me for what happened next. Diane opened the meeting with a bombshell. Sophia had already found a buyer for the house. Her friend, of course, and they'd accepted his offer without consulting me. I felt like the ground had been ripped out from under me. "You did what?" I demanded, my voice shaking. "It was the best option for everyone," Diane said, avoiding my gaze. "We didn't want to bother you with the details since you've been so stressed." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. After everything I'd done, they'd gone behind my back and made the decision without me. It was in that moment that I realized the truth. I wasn't part of this family. Not really. I was just a convenient scapegoat, someone they could use and discard when it suited them. And I was done letting them treat me that way. As I sat in Aunt Diane's living room, reeling from the news that they had sold Grandma's house behind my back, a mixture of rage and disbelief boiled inside me. I stared at Diane, Sophia, and Jake, their expressions ranging from smug to indifferent. It felt like a slap in the face, no worse. It felt like betrayal on a level I hadn't thought possible. When were you planning on telling me? I asked, my voice trembling with anger. Or were you just going to wait until the sale went through and send me a check? Sophia had the audacity to roll her eyes. Oh, come on, Emily. It's not like you haven't been involved in every single detail up until now. We didn't think you'd care who bought it as long as it was sold. Didn't think I'd care? I repeated, incredulous. You went behind my back and made a decision that affects all of us. And you didn't think I'd care? Aunt Diane put up her hands in a placating gesture. Emily, we didn't mean to upset you. We were just trying to move things along. The buyer is offering a fair price, and he's ready to close quickly. It's what's best for everyone. What's best for everyone? I laughed bitterly. You mean what's best for Sophia's friend? Sophia bristled at that. What's your problem, Emily? You act like this is some personal attack on you. It's not. We just made a decision without you for once. Get over it. Get over it. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. After months of sacrificing my time, energy, and money, they expected me to just get over it. My voice rose before I could stop it. You know what? I'm done. I've spent months doing everything for this family. Fixing the house, paying for the repairs, dealing with the contractors, and cleaning up your messes. And this is how you repay me? By going behind my back and treating me like I don't matter? Emily, you're overreacting, Diane said, her tone patronizing. We're all grateful for what you've done. But at the end of the day, this is a family decision. Oh, now it's a family decision? I shot back. Funny how that only applies when it benefits you. Jake finally spoke up, though his words were predictably unhelpful. Look, it's not that big of a deal. The house is still getting sold, and you'll get your money back. Isn't that what you wanted? I stared at him in disbelief. It's not just about the money, Jake. It's about respect. Something none of you seem to have for me. I didn't wait for a response. I grabbed my bag and stormed out of the house, slamming the door behind me. My hands were shaking as I got into my car. Part of me wanted to go back and scream at them until they understood how much they'd hurt me. But deep down, I knew it wouldn't make a difference. They didn't care. They never had. When I got home, I collapsed onto the couch and let the tears come. It felt like everything I'd worked for, every sacrifice I'd made, had been for nothing. The house wasn't just a building to me. It was a symbol of our family, of all the memories we'd shared. And now it was gone, sold off to a stranger without so much as a conversation. I called Chloe, desperate for someone to talk to. She answered on the first ring. Hey, Em. What's wrong? She asked, immediately picking up on the distress in my voice. They sold the house, I said, my voice breaking. Sophia and Diane sold it to her friend without even telling me. What? Chloe sounded furious on my behalf. Are you serious? After everything you've done for them? Yeah, I said bitterly. And they acted like I was overreacting for being upset. Diane even had the nerve to tell me it was a family decision. Chloe was quiet for a moment, and I could practically hear her biting her tongue. When she finally spoke, her voice was calm but firm. Emily, you need to stop letting them treat you like this. They're toxic. You've done more than enough for them, and they don't deserve you. I know, I said, though the words felt hollow. Knowing something and acting on it were two very different things. But what am I supposed to do now? Just walk away? Maybe, Chloe said. Or maybe you could dig a little deeper. If they sold the house that quickly, something doesn't add up. You might not have a say in the sale anymore, but you deserve to know the truth. Her words stuck with me. Something about the way they had rushed the sale did feel off. The more I thought about it, the more convinced I became that there was more to the story. Sophia's insistence on selling to her friend, the way Diane brushed off my concerns, it all felt too convenient. The next day, I decided to do some digging. I started with the contractor, who had been the one to call me about Sophia's unauthorized upgrades. When I asked him if he knew anything about the buyer, he hesitated. "I'm not sure I should say anything," he said. "I don't want to get in the middle of family drama." "Please," I said, my voice pleading. "I just want to know the truth." He sighed. "All I know is that the buyer isn't just some friend of Sophia's. He's connected to Diane somehow. I overheard her talking to him on the phone a few weeks ago." My stomach dropped. Diane had been in on it from the beginning. That explained why she was so quick to side with Sophia and push me out of the decision-making process. But why? What did she stand to gain? I dug deeper, searching public records and property listings until I finally found the buyer's name. It didn't take long to piece together the connection. The buyer wasn't just a friend of Sophia's. He was also Diane's business partner in some small real estate venture. They'd been working together for years. It all made sense now. The lowball offer, the rushed sale, Diane's sudden shift in loyalty. They had orchestrated the whole thing to line their own pockets. And I had been their pawn, doing all the hard work while they reaped the benefits. I felt sick. This wasn't just a betrayal. It was a calculated, deliberate act of deceit. My own family had used me, manipulated me, and lied to my face. All for money. That night, I called Chloe again, shaking with anger as I told her what I'd discovered. "They planned this the whole time," I said. "Diane and Sophia, they're working with the buyer. They used me to fix up the house so they could sell it at a profit." Chloe was livid. "Emily, you can't let them get away with this. You need to confront them." "I will," I said, my voice steely. "But not yet. First, I need to figure out exactly how far this goes. If they think they can screw me over and get away with it, they've got another thing coming." For the first time in months, I felt a spark of determination. I wasn't just going to walk away. I was going to make sure they paid for what they'd done, one way or another. Over the next few days, I gathered every piece of evidence I could find. Emails, messages, records of payments to the contractor. Anything that connected Diane and Sophia to the buyer. With Chloe's help, I even managed to find a series of photos posted on the buyer's Instagram that showed him meeting with Diane at the house weeks before the sale was finalized. They had been planning this for far longer than I'd realized. It was infuriating to see how calculated it all was. Diane had played the long game, using my time, effort, and even my savings to set the stage for a sale that would benefit her and Sophia. I wasn't just hurt anymore. I was livid, and I was ready to confront them. I called a family meeting at Diane's house, claiming I had some updates about the house. Diane sounded hesitant but agreed, probably thinking I was finally coming around to their side. When I arrived, Sophia and Jake were already there, lounging in the living room like they didn't have a care in the world. "Let's make this quick," Sophia said as I sat down. "I've got a conference call in an hour." "Oh, don't worry," I said, forcing a smile. "This won't take long." Diane appeared a moment later, carrying a tray of coffee like we were about to have a casual chat. The sight of her pretending everything was fine only fueled my anger. But I stayed calm, reminding myself that I had the upper hand. "So," I began, pulling out a folder full of documents, "I've been doing some research on the sale of Grandma's house, and I found some interesting things." Sophia groaned. "Oh my God, Emily, are we really doing this? The house is sold. It's over. Let it go." "No, Sophia," I said sharply, cutting her off. "It's not over. Because it turns out the buyer isn't just your friend. He's also Aunt Diane's business partner." The room went silent. Diane's face paled, and Jake sat up straighter, clearly confused. Sophia, however, tried to brush it off. "So what?" she said, crossing her arms. "He's a good buyer. What does it matter if he knows Mom?" "It matters," I snapped, "because you two conspired to sell the house for less than it was worth so you could make a profit. And you used me to do it." Diane finally found her voice. "Emily, that's not true. You don't understand." "Oh, I understand perfectly," I interrupted, slapping the folder onto the coffee table. "You used me to fix up the house, loan money for repairs, and handle all the hard work. Then you went behind my back, sold it to someone you're financially tied to, and tried to make me look like the bad guy when I called you out. Do you really think I'm that stupid?" Diane's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. She was caught, and she knew it. Sophia, however, wasn't ready to give up the fight. Okay, fine, she said, her tone defensive. We sold the house to someone we trust. So what? You'll still get your share of the money. Why are you making this into such a big deal? Because it's not just about the money, Sophia, I shouted, finally letting my anger show. It's about the lies, the manipulation, the complete lack of respect. I gave up so much for this family, and this is how you treat me. Like I'm some disposable tool you can use and toss aside when you're done? Jake, who had been silent up until now, finally spoke. Wait, is this true? Mom, is he really your business partner? Diane looked like she wanted to sink into the floor. Jake, sweetheart, it's not what it seems. It's exactly what it seems, I said, cutting her off. She's been working with him for years. This wasn't about what's best for the family. It was about what's best for Diane and Sophia. Jake looked between us, his brow furrowed. For the first time, he seemed to grasp the gravity of the situation. That's messed up, he muttered, shaking his head. Oh, please, Sophia snapped. You didn't even care about the house until 5 minutes ago. Don't act like you're some moral authority now. Enough, I said, slamming my hand on the table. I'm done with all of you. I'm not going to fight for respect that I'll never get. But I'll tell you this, you're not getting away with this. I have enough evidence to take this to a lawyer if I need to. Diane's eyes widened in panic. Emily, please. Let's not escalate this. We're family. Family. I laughed bitterly. You only use that word when it's convenient for you. Family doesn't lie, cheat, and betray each other. Whatever this is, it's not family. I stood up, grabbing my folder. You can keep your profits and your lies. But don't ever expect me to clean up your messes again. I'm done. I walked out without looking back, my heart pounding with a mix of anger and relief. For the first time, I felt free. Free from their expectations, their manipulation, and their endless demands. They could deal with the consequences of their actions on their own. I wasn't going to save them anymore. In the weeks that followed, I started putting myself first for the first time in years. I reached out to a lawyer to explore my options, and while I ultimately decided not to pursue legal action, the process gave me a sense of closure. Diane and Sophia tried to reach out a few times, but I ignored their calls and texts. I wasn't interested in their apologies or their excuses. Chloe was my rock through it all, constantly reminding me that I deserved better. You don't owe them anything, Emily, she said one night over wine. You've done more for them than they ever deserved. Now it's time to do something for yourself. And she was right. I started focusing on my own goals, investing in my career, and even taking a long overdue vacation. Slowly but surely, I began to heal. As for Diane, Sophia, and Jake, I heard through the grapevine that the buyer backed out at the last minute, leaving them scrambling to find another offer. I couldn't help but feel a small sense of satisfaction. Karma had a funny way of catching up. Grandma's house might have been sold, but I realized it wasn't the house that mattered. It was the lessons I learned along the way, lessons about boundaries, self-worth, and the importance of standing up for myself. I'm still grieving the loss of what I thought my family was, but I'm also proud of myself for finally breaking free. Because for the first time in a long time, I feel like I'm living for me, and that's something no one can take away.